Hello and welcome to the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garta. What happened in the Arab Spring is not going to happen here. That's what Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe told supporters just last month. But can he be so sure? The country is facing economic collapse, weighed down by enormous debts, and is fast running out of cash. Against this backdrop is growing political turmoil, with a wave of anti-government protests, along with strikes by public sector workers who are angry that their salaries aren't being paid. There are also growing signs of infighting within the ruling Zanu PF, with some senior party members now openly criticizing their leader. Even some of the war veterans, who were always among Mugabe's most staunch supporters, have now come out against him. Our newsmaker today is President Robert Mugabe, as we ask whether he's losing his grip on power after more than 35 years in charge.
Anti-government protests in Zimbabwe's capital are getting more and more violent. Opposition is mounting amid the country's crippled economy, aggravated by months of drought. Queues for ATMs that are running out of cash have become a common sight in Harare, and the trade deficit has shot up by more than 700% in the last decade. Many inside and outside the country blame Robert Mugabe, the country's longtime leader, for the country's collapsing economy.
Everything is pointing towards the fact that Mugabe has failed or is failing to manage the economy or the country of Zimbabwe. That in itself is causing people to be angry. As you know, a hungry man is an angry man.
But the 92-year-old president remains as defiant as ever against anyone who opposes his rule.
We can't allow them to continue on these violent demonstrations unimpeded.
Robert Mugabe has ruled Zimbabwe since it gained independence from Britain in 1980.
I am created as president by the people.
But 36 years in power seem to be wearing on him. And it's not just the opposition calling for him to resign. It's also some of his former allies. With rumours about the president's health, there's speculation over who will succeed him. And it's causing a divide in the ruling Zanu PF party. On one side is Mugabe's right-hand man and vice president, Emmerson Mnangagwa. And on the other side, the president's wife, Grace, who's assumed an increasingly political role over the last few years. With Zimbabwe's spiralling economy, the calls for a new president are getting louder. And many are wondering whether time is running out for the man who led the country to independence. Gracie Jerome, The Newsmakers.
Well, let's start by getting a better sense of what's happening in Zimbabwe at the moment. I'm joined from Harare by Ngaba Machazi, news editor at the Independent Daily Newsday. Thanks a lot for joining us, Ngaba. So, from the outside looking in, the impression that we get is that Zimbabwe is on the brink of a terrible economic crisis, and at the moment, there's political and social instability bubbling. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yeah, that's very quite accurate, because of the way things are right now in Zimbabwe is that there is no money, the economy is on its knees, and there's no cash in the economy, which means we have no money for importing, we have no money for basics, we have no money for anything. Even the government itself has run out of money. So the situation is really bad right now economically.
While all of this is ongoing, the president is unveiling statues of himself. Is that an indication that he's completely out of touch with what's going on?
Well, you could say that on one hand, that is out of touch. But on the other hand, he's got lots of sycophantic supporters who will do anything to curry favor with him.
You say sycophantic supporters, but there's a feeling that he's probably losing his base, because we're seeing criticism from within Zanu PF, we're seeing war veterans. Is that true that he might be losing his base?
Well, I think he's losing his base. This is the first time probably since independence that he's facing such opposition. The war vets are running away from him. Some of the youths are not happy with what he's doing. And even some of the factions within his party are openly fighting him. On the other hand, has a group of core supporters who are willing to do anything for him. Just in May, after a few demonstrations, he organized a 1 million man march for him so that he could show his support for him. And also, when other people demonstrated against him, he responded by having a youth march for him and show that they support him. So as much as he's losing support, he still has sycophantic supporters who are not willing to go anywhere anytime soon.
Ngaba, Zimbabwe went through tremendous economic turmoil in 2008, and remarkably, in many ways, it recovered to a great extent. How does this situation in 2016 compare to 8 years ago?
Well, personally, I think it's worse now than it was in 2008. Now there's a perfect storm of things gathering, all conspiring against the president. You have the economy that's on its knees, you have his age and his health, and all of a sudden, people that supported him in 2008 are all gone. The former Vice President, Joyce Mujuru, the war veterans, some youth, and because of joblessness, which has risen to about 90%, lack of money in the economy. That's why I keep saying it's a perfect storm. Everything is conspiring against the president, making this situation worse than probably it was in 2008.
Okay, Ngaba, great to get your insight there. Ngaba Mashazi joining us there from Harare. Well, joining us now from Harare is Bright Matonga, a former Deputy Information Minister under President Mugabe and now a political analyst. And from Johannesburg, I'm joined by Tino Mambo, the South African coordinator of the Zimbabwe Exiles Forum. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Let me start with you, Tino Mambo. When I spoke to Ngaba Machazi earlier on, he says the feeling on the ground is that the situation right now is worse than 2008. Do you agree with him?
Well, I should say I agree with the gentleman very much in those terms. You realize that in 2008 we did not have Zanu PF militia and the presence of police on the streets as you see right now in 2016. Yesterday it was a football match between Highlanders and Dynamos, and what was visible there were armored vehicles from the police unit. So it means that things have actually deteriorated, and the levels of anger are now beyond the 2008 levels, which is the major thing here.
Bright Matonga, you served under President Mugabe. You used to be at the table when these decisions were made. He had massive, almost fanatical support from so many sectors of society, not only within Zanu PF, but now we're seeing cracks. We're seeing criticism from the likes of Caiphus Msipa, the former Zanu PF Politburo member, saying that Robert Mugabe risks being consumed by unrestrained public anger. We're seeing war veterans criticizing him. Is he losing his touch, and is he losing his base?
The situation definitely is very fragile. It's very tense. You don't know what is going to happen in the next hour, the next day, or even the next month. There's no cash, as has been reported in your report, and there is no trust between all the systems, really, because you've got your judiciary, you've got your police, you've got your people, you've got your political parties, you've got divisions within Zanu PF. So it is a dog-eat-dog kind of scenario at the moment.
I look at the issue of no cash, Bright, and I see that even the Chinese, who usually get involved with no strings attached, they have conditions. And, you know, the reports come out that they want Zanu PF to reform, to tackle corruption, they want leadership change and so on. With all of this in mind, at age 92, with his country potentially on the verge of burning to the ground, is it time for President Mugabe to move on?
Is now seen to be oppressing people. There is no rule of law, so to speak. If you don't have your own currency to talk about, then there is a serious problem. At 92, we don't even have to discuss. We know what 92-year-olds should be at the moment. So let's put that aside. But the system itself there has to be a new system, there has to be new blood, new ideas, and really investors cannot trust their money with such a system which is not accountable, which doesn't respect its own costs. We've had, the president attacking the judiciary, We have had the president attacking the army, the police. So really, there is no accountability on behalf of the president or even on behalf of the party, that is the ruling party. So there is a problem, there is a serious problem. We cannot run away from that. Something has to happen, and something should happen soon.
Tina Mambo, the High Court Justice Priscilla Chigumba's ruling recently that the government's arbitrary ban on opposition parties and civic groups' recent protests against President Robert Mugabe was invalid. She said it's invalid. Are you encouraged by the fact that the judiciary is standing firm?
Well, we can look at that in two ways. The first way is that the judge did quite nice in, articulating that in the first place, the Saunyama, the guy that issued that statutory instrument, is not qualified according to our constitution to do such a procedure. So I would say that the judge was quite spot on. But you will remember that the state has been given 7 days to appeal, and you will never know what happens when the state is going to appeal. So we do not want to really be in a celebratory mood as such as of yet. We are still watching the systems and how things unfold.
Bright Matonga, can Zimbabweans protest peacefully and freely without facing the wrath of the state?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. They cannot for what has been happening. The judges even are now afraid to make any decisions. There was a case over this weekend where the judge said to the opposition parties that you need to invite the police to court. How can a judge make such a ruling? So there are serious problems. Even if people are going to make peaceful protests, the system is very cunning. They can set these things up. I don't buy in the issue that a police vehicle was burned down or even a television, radio car was burned down by protesters. I think it was an inside job so that they can thwart any form of protest.
Mr. Matonga, you say the system is very cunning. You were part of the decision-making for a long, long time. You were a face of the government to international media for a long, long time. Do you have any regrets serving this government, this cunning system, and serving the president during your years? No. When you are in a job, I believed what I was doing was the right thing to do. We defended people needed to be empowered. They need to be given land. But it's then what happens after people have been empowered, so to speak. You know, they say there's indigenization, only a few people are empowered. So really, certain things have to come to an end. We've got a constitution that has to be respected. We don't see the constitution being respected. When you see a president attacking the judiciary, it's supposed to be independent, but it's not. When a president speaks who's not accountable to anybody, obviously it sends shivers to people. And the people of Zimbabwe have to come with a local solution, homegrown solution, and really not play into Zanu PF's hands. It's been great to talk to you, Bright Matonga and Tino Mambao, and earlier Ngaba Machazi. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.